The chandeliers glittered like frozen constellations above them, casting their light on a sea of silk dresses and polished shoes. The ballroom echoed with laughter, clinking glasses, the hollow music of wealth and power, a kingdom Nathan Whitmore ruled, and a crown Alara had placed on his head with her own bloodied hands. To the world they were perfect, the king and queen of the business world, the golden couple who had it all: success, love, power. He wore his victory like a second skin, she wore her sacrifice like an invisible chain. Standing beside him, Alara smiled, the kind of smile that looked effortless to strangers, but was stitched together with exhaustion, bruised trust, and a grief she hadn't yet learned to name. Nathan squeezed her hand as they accepted another award, a gleaming trophy commemorating the company they had built from scratch, back when their only assets were ambition and sleepless nights. "To my beautiful wife, who made all of this possible," Nathan said into the microphone, his voice rich with the easy charm that had once made her heart race. "I could never have done this without you." The crowd cheered. Cameras flashed. Alara's smile tightened. Because she already knew, she already felt it in the way he had started coming home later. In the new passwords on his phone, in the perfume she didn't own lingering on his collar. Applause roared around them, but in Alara's ears it sounded like a funeral march, not just for their marriage, but for the woman she used to be, the woman who believed love meant loyalty, the woman who would have followed him into hell and called it home. Tonight, they celebrated a legacy. Tomorrow, he would begin to destroy it, and when he was finished tearing down everything they had built together, when he thought she was nothing but ashes under his feet, he would finally understand. The real empire had never been the buildings, the brands, or the billions. It was her, and she would rise from the ruins he left behind, stronger, colder, brighter than he ever imagined. The night she lost everything was the night she realized she didn't need a king, she was born to be the kingdom. There was a time when Nathan Whitmore looked at Alara like she was the sun itself, a light too bright to touch, too vital to live without. She remembered those days with the kind of painful clarity reserved for scars. Back when love was enough, back when dreams didn't cost blood. They met in a crumbling university coffee shop, surrounded by cracked tiles and the stale smell of burnt espresso. Alara was balancing a full course load and 2 part-time jobs, her dreams stitched together with hope and caffeine. Nathan was just another broke dreamer, wild-eyed, messy-haired, a whirlwind of ambition scribbled across napkins and battered notebooks. He introduced himself by spilling an entire cup of coffee across her laptop. "Shit, I'm so sorry," Nathan had stammered, grabbing a handful of napkins, his hands as frantic as his voice. Alara should have been furious. She should have stormed off, filed a complaint, cursed him to hell and back. Instead, she laughed. Something about the pure panic in his eyes was disarming. "It's just a laptop," she said, taking the ruined device with a shrug. "Coffee happens." Nathan blinked at her, like she was speaking a language he didn't understand. And in a way he was used to anger, to disdain, to people waiting for him to fail. He wasn't used to kindness. Maybe that was why he latched onto her so quickly. Maybe that was why she let him. Their first real conversation lasted 6 hours. They sat in the drafty corner booth long after the cafe closed, swapping dreams like secrets. Nathan talked about building a company that would change the world. Alara talked about writing novels, traveling to cities with names that tasted foreign on her tongue. He looked at her like she was magic. She looked at him like he was fire. And together, they dared to believe that the world could be theirs if they just wanted it badly enough. They fell in love the way some people drown, slowly at first, then all at once. Late-night study sessions that turned into whispered confessions. Cheap instant noodles eaten cross-legged on the floor. The thrill of stolen kisses behind library shelves. The quiet, soul-deep certainty that no matter how hard life hit them, they'd face it hand in hand. Nathan had nothing when they started. No money, no connections, just a restless hunger that scared most people away. But Alara wasn't scared. She saw something fierce and aching in him, something that mirrored the parts of herself she didn't show anyone else. He wanted to be great. She wanted to build something that mattered. It wasn't hard to believe they could do it together. The first time Nathan talked about Halotech, it wasn't over a glass of champagne or under a spotlight. It was in their one-bedroom apartment, the ceiling leaking from the last rainstorm, the heater rattling uselessly against the cold. Nathan sat on the edge of their mattress, animated and breathless, waving a crumpled sketch of an app that could revolutionize small business networking. "I just need a little funding," he said, his eyes bright and reckless. "A few thousand to get the prototype up." Alara didn't hesitate. She pawned her mother's wedding ring the next morning. When she placed the money in Nathan's hands, he looked at her like she hung the stars herself. "I swear, Elle," he whispered, voice rough with emotion, "I'll make you proud." She didn't want pride, she just wanted him. The years that followed blurred into a grinding, relentless machine of hustle and heartbreak. Alara worked endless shifts, diner waitress by morning, bookstore clerk by night. She slept 4 hours a night, lived off black coffee and hope. Every dollar she earned went into Hallotech. Every second she could spare went into helping Nathan build his dream. She learned about business contracts she never intended to understand. Taught herself enough marketing to get Hallotech its first 100 users, networked with greasy-handed investors who dismissed her with barely a glance because she wasn't the man with the vision. And every time Nathan faltered, every time the money dried up, the prototypes failed, the doors slammed in their faces, Alara was there, holding him up, believing in him, loving him harder when he hated himself. They made promises in the dark when sleep was too heavy to fight. "When we make it, you'll never have to work another day unless you want to. I'm going to buy you that bookstore by the lake, remember? The one you always talked about? We're going to be unstoppable, Alara, together." And she believed him. With every shattered piece of herself, she believed. Because love, real love, wasn't about who you were when things were easy. It was about who you became when the world tried to tear you apart. And Alara became Nathan's shield, his sword, his silent architect. The woman behind the throne, the woman no one clapped for when the lights turned on, but without whom there would be no kingdom at all. If she had known then what was coming, she would have run. She would have ripped the crown from his head before it could cut her hands. But the thing about love, Alara would later realize, was that it didn't ask if you were ready to bleed. It simply handed you the knife and dared you to stay. Success didn't happen overnight. It crept in like a slow, glittering poison. Hallotech landed its first major client 3 years after the first line of code was written, a single contract worth more than Alara had seen in her entire lifetime. Enough money to stop rationing groceries, enough to replace the couch held together with duct tape, enough to let them breathe. Nathan proposed with a diamond so large it felt ridiculous on her calloused, work-worn hand. "You deserve the world," he whispered into her hair, the city skyline glittering behind them. "And I'm going to give it to you." Alara believed him. Of course she did. After all, wasn't she standing in the empire they had built together? The first signs were easy to dismiss. A forgotten anniversary here, a business meeting scheduled over date night there. "It's just a busy season," Nathan would say, kissing her forehead distractedly. "Just until we stabilize." Alara understood. She was building the empire too, even if no one else saw the invisible labor she poured into keeping it afloat. She answered emails late into the night, balanced the books when Nathan forgot, scheduled meetings, negotiated contracts, soothed angry clients, all without asking for recognition, because wasn't this the dream? Wasn't this what they had fought for? But then the meetings started happening somewhere she wasn't invited. Exclusive parties, private clubs, networking events where the guest lists shimmered with names Alara had never heard of, people who wore designer suits and spoke in careful, gleaming lies. "You wouldn't like it," Nathan said when she offered to come along. "It's just exhausting, schmoozing, boring politics." He said it with a smile, with a squeeze of her hand, with a kiss on the temple. And Alara, loyal to a fault, convinced herself that trust meant acceptance. So she stayed home. She buried herself deeper into the operations of the company. She told herself it was fine when he stopped answering her texts after 10 p.m., told herself it was normal when he started wearing expensive cologne she didn't recognize, told herself it was love when the kisses became quicker, the conversations shorter, the distance between them a chasm neither of them seemed willing to bridge. After all, success was busy. Success was demanding. Success was supposed to change things, wasn't it? Wasn't it? The fracture became impossible to ignore on a Tuesday evening in March. Alara was staying late at the office, her fingers flying across the keyboard, answering vendor emails Nathan had forgotten to respond to, when she received a delivery, a bouquet. Roses, deep, bruised crimson, tied with a silk ribbon. No note. She assumed it was from Nathan at first. A clumsy apology, maybe. A reminder that he hadn't completely forgotten who had helped him climb the mountain. But when she texted him a thank you, she got no reply. Hours later, while reorganizing their shared office, Alara found the receipt accidentally tucked under a stack of folders. The flowers hadn't been sent to her. They had been ordered from Nathan's corporate card, but they were addressed to someone else, Sienna Marlowe, a name she didn't know. Or maybe she did. Maybe, in the pit of her stomach, she had known for months. She sat there for a long time, the office cold and too bright, the sounds of the city bleeding through the windows like static, staring at the receipt, at the undeniable proof that someone, was slithering through the cracks of her life. When Nathan finally stumbled home that night, drunk on champagne and success, Alara said nothing. She just watched him, this man she had built an empire for, as he dropped his keys on the counter, laughed at some memory she wasn't a part of, and kissed her forehead absent-mindedly before collapsing onto the bed. And for the first time, Alara didn't feel proud, didn't feel victorious, didn't even feel angry. She just felt empty, like she had been pouring herself into a vessel that had already sprung 1,000 invisible leaks. "I'm just tired," she told herself in the dark. "I'm overthinking. I'm stressed. It's nothing." She curled into herself, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the silence settle onto her chest like a stone, and somewhere deep inside her, in a place she had never let herself touch, a seed of doubt took root. It was small, it was silent, but it was there, and it would grow. It would grow into something vast and terrible, something she could never unsee, something that would one day tear their kingdom apart, stone by painstaking stone. Some betrayals don't happen in a single moment. They seep in slowly, a drip, 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 until the dam breaks and you realize you've been drowning for a long, long time. But Alara's betrayal came all at once, loud, violent, a wrecking ball through the carefully constructed walls of her life. It started with a lipstick. It was a Saturday morning, gray and unremarkable. Alara was cleaning out Nathan's car because he had a charity event to attend that evening and was, as usual, running behind. He hadn't even kissed her goodbye that morning, just a distracted wave, a murmured, "Love you," tossed over his shoulder. She found the lipstick under the passenger seat, a deep, sensual shade of crimson she had never worn in her life. Her heart stalled. It could have been innocent, she told herself, maybe a client, maybe a friend. But when she unscrewed the cap, the smell hit her. Expensive, cloying, intimate. Lipstick doesn't just fall out of a handbag. It doesn't accidentally end up under a car seat. Not like this. Not tucked into a corner like a guilty secret. That night, Nathan was supposed to be at a gala downtown. Alara almost let it go. Almost. But the lipstick sat on the counter like a dare, and something inside her, something she couldn't quiet anymore, whispered, "Find out." So she did something she had never done in all their years together. She followed him. The hotel wasn't hard to find. Glitzy, dripping with wealth, the kind of place they used to pass by and dream about. She parked across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. From her spot she could see the grand entrance, the gold-plated doors revolving with a steady stream of guests. And then she saw him, Nathan, laughing, holding hands with a woman who wasn't her. The woman was stunning, tall, poised, with a cascade of dark hair and a dress that screamed wealth. Sienna Marlowe. The name from the flower receipt. The woman from the lipstick stain. The woman from the late nights and the unanswered texts, and the perfume clinging to Nathan's clothes. Alara felt her world tilt. Her breathing went shallow. Her heart clawed against her ribs, trying to escape. But she couldn't look away. Nathan didn't just walk beside Sienna. He didn't just smile at her. He leaned down, whispered something into her ear, and kissed her. Right there, in public. Like she was the only thing in the world he saw. The kiss was familiar. The way he cradled the back of Sienna's head, the way he smiled into her mouth. It was the same kiss he used to give Alara. The same kiss he had stolen from her when they were still young and stupid enough to believe in forever. And in that moment, Alara realized something more devastating than the betrayal itself. He loved this woman. not just a fling, not just a mistake. Nathan had moved on. And she had been left behind, still clutching the ruins of a life he no longer wanted. She sat in the car for a long time after they disappeared into the hotel, staring at the revolving doors, at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized in the glass. How long had it been happening? Had it started while she was scraping together rent? While she was selling her jewelry to pay for another prototype? While she was sacrificing sleep, health, her soul, for a dream they once built together? Had he loved her at all? Or had she just been a stepping stone? A launch pad for his ambitions? A convenient, loyal fool? When Alara finally drove home, the sun was already bleeding into the horizon. The house, their house, felt like a tomb. Every corner, every picture frame, every stupid piece of furniture they had picked out together screamed memories at her. She stumbled through the living room, trailing her fingers across the couch they had bought second-hand, the bookshelf she had assembled herself because Nathan had been too busy coding, the kitchen where they used to slow dance at midnight, laughing and drunk on cheap wine. It was all dead now. A mausoleum of lies. She dropped onto the floor, knees hitting the hardwood with a painful thud, clutching the lipstick in her hand like it could somehow explain it all. The sob that tore out of her wasn't delicate. It was raw, animalistic, the sound of a soul breaking open. She cried until her throat burned, until her body shook, until there was nothing left inside her but silence. A hollow, terrible silence. At some point, she didn't know when, she wiped her face on the sleeve of her sweater, stared at the lipstick in her palm one last time. Then she stood up, slowly, deliberately. Something hard and cold settled inside her chest, a new, unfamiliar thing that tasted like steel. Not grief, not sadness. Resolve. She wasn't going to beg, she wasn't going to scream, she wasn't going to throw plates or scratch at his face or tearfully demand an explanation. Nathan Whitmore had built his empire on her back, and she was going to take it all away. Piece by bloody piece. The beautiful thing about heartbreak, the terrible, blinding thing, is that once it burns everything inside you to ash, it leaves room for something new to grow. Alara didn't rise from the floor that night as the same woman who had built an empire with Nathan. She rose as someone sharper, harder, someone who had nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous kind of enemy. She didn't confront him right away. No, that was what he would expect. Nathan was used to messy endings, screaming matches, slamming doors, public scenes. He was prepared for a tearful, dramatic wife he could paint as unstable or emotional to the board if things got ugly. Alara gave him none of that. The next morning she cooked him breakfast, smiled when he kissed her cheek, packed his suitcase for his business trip. She played the perfect, devoted wife because she wasn't going to just leave. She was going to destroy him. While Nathan was off playing king at gala events with Sienna on his arm, Alara worked, quietly. She started with the company books. Alara had always handled the finances, a task Nathan had considered boring, tedious beneath him. He hadn't even noticed when she quietly created backups of every document, contracts, email trails, invoicing records, proof that while Nathan was the face of Halotech, Alara was the bones and blood holding it together. Proof that he wasn't just neglectful, he was careless. Borderline fraudulent in some cases, if you knew where to look, and Alara knew exactly where to look. She found the secret expense accounts first. Money funneled quietly into luxury hotels, private jets, jewelry purchases. Nathan hadn't even tried to hide well. Expenses disguised as client entertainment that, in reality, paid for weekends with Sienna in Paris and Venice and Maui. Each line item was a knife in the gut, each receipt another blow. But she didn't let herself fall apart, not this time. This time she cataloged each betrayal carefully, clinically. Building her arsenal, she called an old college friend next, a woman who had become a high-powered corporate attorney. They met at a small cafe on the edge of town, far away from the glittering towers of Halotech's downtown offices. Alara slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, the beginnings of Nathan Whitmore's downfall. Her friend flipped through the documents, eyebrows climbing higher with each page. "You could bury him with this," she said finally, voice low and impressed. Alara smiled thinly. "That's the plan." The next step was harder. She had to make herself visible again. Nathan had slowly pushed her out of the spotlight over the years, relegating her to back office work while he took the credit. But the truth was, Alara's fingerprints were on everything. The software? She had written the original architecture, the early investor pitches, her designs. The breakthrough innovation that had landed their first multi-million-dollar client, her idea. And she still had the original patents, signed and sealed under her name, something Nathan had been too arrogant to notice. She was the true founder, and she was going to remind the world. Alara started attending industry events alone, dressed sharply, all clean lines and quiet power, no more soft pastels and shy smiles. She reconnected with old contacts, quietly building alliances. She smiled for photos, gave interviews, let her name slowly weave its way back into the tech world's consciousness. Halotech's hidden genius, they called her in whispers. The real mind behind the machine. Nathan didn't even notice at first, too busy parading Sienna around, too busy drunk on his own success. He didn't see the currents shifting beneath him. He didn't see the tide pulling away from his feet. But he would. Oh, he would. One evening, as she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse, watching the city glitter below, Nathan came up behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, his cologne thick and unfamiliar. "You're amazing, you know that?" he murmured against her neck. It took everything in Alara not to recoil. "We're unstoppable," he said, his voice filled with that old cocky certainty. Alara smiled. A slow, cold smile. "Yes," she whispered back, turning to kiss him lightly. "Unstoppable." But not in the way he thought. In the privacy of her home office, Alara added the final piece to her plan, a detailed exposé, a complete, undeniable timeline of Nathan's misconduct, financial fraud, and personal betrayals, one anonymous leak to the right journalist, and Nathan Whitmore's empire would crumble into dust. The only question now was timing. She could almost feel the sword poised above his neck. All she had to do was wait for the perfect moment to let it fall. Because Alara Whitmore wasn't just going to walk away, she was going to burn the kingdom down around him, and when the ashes settled, she would still be standing, untouched, unbroken, unforgiving. In the beginning, the cracks were small. A missed email here, an investor suddenly less eager there, a project delayed for technical reasons no one could explain. Nathan, basking in the glow of his own arrogance, didn't notice, but Alara did. Because she had engineered it. It started with the leak. A single email sent anonymously to the Financial Tribune, the most ruthless business publication in the city. It wasn't flashy. No drama. Just a simple subject line, the truth about Halotech. Attached, documents, receipts, proof of Nathan's creative accounting, misuse of investor funds, and the real source of Halotech's core technology. Alara didn't sign her name. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. The article dropped like a bomb on a Monday morning. By noon, Halotech's stock price was in free fall. By evening, 3 board members had resigned. By nightfall, Nathan's phone was exploding with calls he couldn't avoid, no matter how hard he tried. Alara watched it all from her corner office, the one Nathan had once said she didn't need. She sipped her coffee slowly, savoring every headline. Halotech scandal. CEO under fire for fraud allegations, sources reveal. Nathan Whitmore's empire built on lies exclusive. Meet the woman behind Halotech's success. That last one made her smile. A real, sharp-edged smile that felt foreign on her face. And perfect. Nathan came home late that night, his energy frantic, his usual charm slipping. "You won't believe the crap people are saying," he said, throwing his jacket across the couch. "Some jealous nobody trying to tear me down. Probably a bitter ex-employee." Alara turned from the window, her expression carefully neutral. "Sounds awful," she murmured. Nathan didn't even look at her. He was pacing, running a hand through his hair, muttering about crisis control and PR strategies. "I need to find out who's behind this," he said. "Make an example of them." Alara simply smiled, soft, supportive, hidden underneath pure ice. "I'm sure you will," she said sweetly. Behind the scenes, the noose tightened. The board of directors launched a formal audit. The SEC started sniffing around. Key investors pulled out, taking millions with them. And worst of all for Nathan, Sienna left him. It happened in the most humiliating way possible. She didn't call. She didn't text. She posted a photo on social media, lounging on a yacht in Monaco, wrapped around a rival tech mogul 10 years younger and twice as ruthless. The caption, "Trading up, #better choices." The media had a field day. Nathan Whitmore's mistress jumps ship. Sienna Marlowe spotted with Halotech's competitor Nathan's fury was legendary. He smashed a whiskey glass against the fireplace. He tore through their penthouse like a man possessed, and still. Alara said nothing. She watched him destroy himself one tantrum at a time, each shattered plate, each broken mirror, a symphony of consequences. One night, after another marathon of damage control calls, Nathan stumbled into the kitchen, glassy-eyed and drunk. "I don't get it," he slurred, slumping against the counter. "I did everything right. I deserve this. I built this." Alara set her wineglass down gently, walked over, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "No, Nathan, I built this. You just stood on my back while I did it." Nathan blinked, confused, the words not registering, but Alara didn't care anymore if he understood. She didn't need his acknowledgement, or his apology, or his love. She needed only one thing now, to finish what she started. The final blow came during the Halotech annual shareholders meeting, a meeting that should have been a celebration of success, a coronation for Nathan. Instead, it became his execution. The room was packed, hundreds of investors, journalists, and executives. Alara sat in the front row, poised and elegant, dressed in a sleek black suit that whispered quiet power. Nathan stood at the podium, sweating under the stage lights, desperately spinning lies about misunderstandings and media bias. He didn't notice the manila envelope waiting on the CEO's desk backstage. He didn't see the way the journalists kept glancing at their phones, receiving the second wave of leaked documents Alara had timed perfectly. Proof of not just financial misconduct, but personal misconduct too. Harassment claims, affairs with subordinates, broken contracts. The full, ugly picture. By the time Nathan finished his speech, no one clapped, no one stood. Instead, the room buzzed with whispered outrage, scandalized gasps. Someone shouted from the back, "Resign! Another, we trusted you!" The board moved swiftly. An emergency session was called. Within the hour, Nathan Whitmore was officially removed as CEO. Security escorted him out the side door. No dignity, no fanfare, no mercy. And Alara? She stood silently in the crowd, watched it all with calm, detached eyes. She didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't even blink. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. Long overdue. Nathan lost everything in the weeks that followed. The company, the fortune, the reputation. His name became a punchline, a cautionary tale. Sienna never returned his calls. His friends abandoned him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. He moved into a dingy apartment downtown, rumors swirling about bankruptcy. And Alara? Alara reclaimed her place at Halotech, publicly acknowledged, finally, as the true founder. She rebranded the company, stripped Nathan's name from every corner, built something stronger, cleaner, better. Something hers. One rainy evening, months later, Nathan saw her by accident. She was stepping out of a sleek town car, laughing with a group of powerful executives. Her smile was effortless, her skin glowed, her eyes sparkled. She looked untouchable, invincible, everything he had once wanted, and everything he had thrown away. He stood there on the sidewalk, soaked and invisible, watching the woman he had betrayed rise higher than he could ever reach. And he realized, too late, that she had been the empire all along. The world had turned, and Alara had turned with it. No longer the woman who clung to dreams built for two, no longer the quiet architect behind someone else's throne. She was something new now, sharpened, fortified, unbreakable. The morning after Nathan's fall, Alara stood on the balcony of her new penthouse overlooking the city skyline, her city now, a glass of champagne in hand, the sunrise painting the world gold. She breathed in deep. The air tasted different, cleaner, sharper. For the first time in years, it was hers alone to savor. Behind her, her assistant bustled about, updating her on meetings, schedules, a list of investors eager to align themselves with her reborn empire. "The world wants to hear your story, Ms. Hart," the assistant said, a bright smile on her young face. Ms. Hart, not Mrs. Whitmore, not Nathan's wife. Alara Hart, her name, her identity, her power. And yet, When the crowds left, when the champagne dried up, when the endless congratulatory emails stopped flooding in, there were nights Alara stood in front of her mirror and touched the faint scars invisible to everyone but her, the ones betrayal had carved deep into her soul. There were days the anger came back, sharp and sudden, like an old wound reopened. The times Nathan's laughter used to echo through empty halls. The way Sienna had smirked like a cat who swallowed the canary, never dreaming Alara could rise. The way she had been discarded so casually, like all her love, loyalty, and blood had been worthless. There were moments, fleeting but raw, when she wondered if she had lost too much to ever fully be whole again. Her youth, her innocence, her faith in people, burned away in the fire she herself had set. One evening, as a storm thundered against the tall windows, Alara sat curled on the leather sofa, a glass of wine untouched on the table beside her. A single photo lay on her lap, an old one, before it all fell apart, before Nathan's betrayal. She was smiling in it, standing next to Nathan, her hand proudly resting on the first ever prototype they had built together. The woman in the photo looked so hopeful, so trusting. Alara traced the edge of the image with a trembling finger. "I don't know her anymore," she whispered to the empty room. But then, something shifted. She didn't need to mourn that woman. That woman had dreamed small. That woman had believed success needed to be shared to be real. That woman had waited for permission to shine. The woman she had become? She commanded it. The next morning she called her head of PR. "I'm ready for the interview," she said. "A feature piece, national syndication." Her voice, finally heard. She wasn't telling the story of Nathan's downfall. No, she was telling the story of Alara Hart's rebirth. The photo shoot was a storm itself. She wore a tailored white suit, crisp, commanding, untouchable. The interview pulled no punches, and neither did she. She spoke of betrayal, not bitterly but clinically. She spoke of survival, not as a victim but as a strategist. And when asked about Nathan, she smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. "Nathan built his empire on quicksand. I just let the tide come in." The article broke the internet. From shadows to spotlight, Alara Hart's meteoric rise, the woman who took down a titan and built something better, justice, success, and rebirth. Alara Hart speaks out. People loved her, admired her, feared her. She had become a symbol, not of revenge, but of reclamation. Meanwhile, Nathan's name slipped further and further into obscurity. He was a ghost haunting the ruins he had once called a kingdom, a cautionary tale at business schools, an embarrassing footnote in tech history, while Alara became a legend. And just when she thought the past had been buried for good, just when she thought the ashes were cooling, a letter arrived, no return address, no name. Just 2 words, written in a hand she recognized instantly. "I'm sorry." And inside, a crumpled photo, her and Nathan on their wedding day, happy, hopeful, still untouched by betrayal. Alara stared at it for a long time, not with anger, not with regret, but with a calm acceptance. She folded the letter once, tucked it into a drawer, and moved on. Because Alara Hart was done looking back. Her future waited, bright, fierce, and utterly her own. And she would walk into it, alone if she must, but always, always unstoppable. Power was a lonely throne. Alara Hart had fought tooth and nail to claim it, but now that she sat at the top, she realized, the higher you rose, the colder the air became. Weeks passed after the viral interview. Investors clamored. Partnership offers flooded her inbox. Industry titans, people who once snubbed her for being just the wife, now bent over backward to court her favor. But Alara didn't rush. She built carefully. She had learned. No more building empires for someone else. Every move now was strategic. Every contract scrutinized. Every handshake measured. She wasn't just building a company. She was building a dynasty. One that couldn't be stolen. One that would outlive betrayal. One afternoon, as she reviewed architectural designs for her new headquarters, a stunning glass tower that would scrape the heavens, her assistant entered wide-eyed. "Miss Hart, you have an unexpected visitor," she said, nervous. "He doesn't have an appointment, but he insisted it was personal." Alara arched a brow. "Name?" The assistant hesitated. "Dominic Wren." The name hit her like a cold splash of water. Dominic Wren, the shark, The tycoon Nathan had once called untouchable, the man who had quietly ruled over an entire financial empire, and who had laughed at Nathan's attempts to court him. Why would Dominic Wren want to see her now? Curious, Alara rose from her seat, smoothed her suit, and nodded. Send him in. Dominic entered like a storm contained within a tailored coat. Tall, sharp-eyed, exuding the kind of authority that made rooms fall silent without a word. But when he met Alara's gaze, he smiled, not a predator's grin, but something almost respectful. Ms. Hart, he said, extending a hand. Or should I say, the new queen of the city. Alara shook his hand, firm and steady. Flattery won't get you a deal, Mr. Wren, she said coolly. He chuckled. Good. I hate cheap deals. They sat across from each other, the city sprawling beneath them, the sun setting in fiery oranges beyond the glass. I watched your rise, Dominic said, tapping a finger against the armrest. Watched you dismantle Nathan without ever dirtying your hands publicly. Impressive, ruthless, brilliant. Alara leaned back, unreadable. And you're here because I believe we have common goals, he said simply, and enemies. He slid a folder across the glass table. Inside, documents, names, figures, a network of individuals Alara instantly recognized. Some were Nathan's old allies. Some were new vultures circling her growing empire. They're betting against you, Dominic said. They think you'll stumble, break under the pressure. They're already plotting ways to take pieces from you. Alara's fingers tightened subtly on the folder. So it never ended. Even after winning, even after rising from ashes, there were always new snakes. I don't need rescuing, she said. Dominic smiled thinly. I'm not here to rescue you. I'm here to build with you. An alliance. You keep your throne. I make sure no one even thinks about touching it. You get bigger, faster. I get access to the future you're creating. He leaned forward, voice low. Together, we could make the city ours. Alara studied him. Dominic Wren was dangerous, a kingmaker. But if she could hold her own with Nathan, she could certainly dance with Wren, without losing herself. Maybe it was time she stopped playing defense. Maybe it was time she expanded her empire far beyond anything Nathan ever dreamed of. Bigger, faster, stronger, unstoppable. After a long moment, she smiled. Not sweet, not soft, a queen's smile. Let's talk terms, Mr. Wren. Outside, the city lights flickered to life. A new era was beginning. And Alara Hart? She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was reigning. Victory wasn't the end. It was only a new battlefield. Months passed. Alara's empire grew, sprawling across industries Nathan never dared touch. She wasn't just a name anymore. She was a force, a queen sitting atop a dynasty carved out with blood, sweat, and a will no betrayal could bend. But in the corners of the city, in the smoke-filled rooms where old money still whispered, a rebellion brewed. They hated her, the men who thought business was a boys' club, the women who envied her brilliance but lacked her courage. The ghosts of Nathan's former allies, all of them circling like vultures, waiting for one misstep, and among them, Nathan himself. Alara first heard his name again during a midnight meeting with Dominic Wren. He's back, Dominic said, tossing a file onto the glass table. New backers, new plans, quiet but ambitious. Inside the file, photos, documents, signatures. Nathan, disgraced, humiliated, was clawing his way back from obscurity. And this time, he wanted her throne. Alara closed the file calmly. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She felt nothing. Let him try, she said coldly. Dominic smiled, not kindly. There's a plot to crash your company. Insider leaks. Bribed board members. A hostile takeover masked as a merger. Alara tapped her nails against the glass. Nathan never built anything without me. He still thinks he can take shortcuts. She stood, her reflection cold and fierce against the window. He's forgotten something, she said. I don't break. The war began in whispers, rumors of instability, sudden offers to buy out her stockholders, anonymous news articles questioning her leadership. And yet, Alara remained unmoved. Each attack, each smear, each betrayal. She met them head-on, steel in her spine, a hurricane behind her calm gaze. Until finally, Nathan made his move. He called for a public shareholder meeting, aiming to humiliate her, expose her as unfit, paint himself as the savior of the company she had built. It was laughable, predictable, pathetic, but Alara allowed it. She wanted him to come into the light. She wanted him to see, with his own desperate eyes, the empire he thought he could steal was already far beyond his reach. The day of the meeting, the conference hall was packed. Investors, media, corporate vultures drooling for scandal. Nathan swaggered in, wearing a mask of false confidence. Alara entered last, wearing a tailored black dress like armor. Her heels clicked across the marble floors, each step a gunshot in the silent room. Nathan tried to speak first, tried to sell his lies, tried to wrap the noose around her, but when Alara took the stage, when she faced them all, she smiled. Not the smile of a woman defending herself, the smile of a queen delivering a final decree. She revealed everything. Proof of Nathan's embezzlement attempts, documents showing he had bribed officials, witnesses ready to testify. She didn't just defend her throne, she obliterated his. By the time she was done, Nathan wasn't a threat. He was a joke, a man stripped bare in front of the empire he once thought he owned. The crowd, once hungry for her blood, rose to their feet. Not for Nathan. For her, for Alara Hart. The true architect, the true ruler, the true heart of everything. As security escorted Nathan out of the building, pale, broken, furious, he looked at her one last time, eyes filled with hatred and something else, regret. But Alara? She didn't look away, she didn't flinch. She gave him the mercy he never gave her, silence. Later that night, standing once again on the balcony of her penthouse, the city sprawling like a conquered kingdom below her, Alara lifted a glass of wine to the stars. The wind tangled in her hair, whispering promises of everything still to come. She smiled. Not the smile of a woman wronged, not the smile of a woman avenged, the smile of a woman who had taken her life back, rewritten her story, and crowned herself with her own hands. Alara Hart had built an empire, and no one would ever steal it again. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it and you would love for more, kindly comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.